Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Unleashed with Carrie. Today, I have my friend Aimee Carlson. Now, she is the Toxin Terminator. But she's been successful at everything these days. She was a really successful franchise owner, and she's just kind of wrapping down that chapter of her life. She's been incredibly successful as a network marketer. And now she is building a whole movement around this podcast of hers, the Toxin Terminator. So, Aimee, thanks for being here today.
Oh, Carrie, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to dig into your tips and your story and all of that. Every time you send something out or I hear a story on your podcast, I'm like, I really need to do better about my lifestyle.
Oh, it's all just steps. It's small steps and just, it's always about starting somewhere.
Yeah. And I think we can all always do better about everything. So we have to realize we're okay where we are, but it's good to keep moving forward.
And that is so key because I think so many, especially us women, we're always so critical and so judgmental of ourselves, of how are we doing as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as a business owner, or a work, employee, whatever your scenario will be. But, just to know that where you are right now is absolutely perfect and okay. It's where you're supposed to be right now. And just know that when we're striving for better and working for better, that, that's what God intends for us to do, is always be improving.
Yeah. So you're a mom of 3, right?
Yes.
And a grandmother of 12.
Yes.
And I think as a parent, that idea can be very hard to accept when you're looking at your child who's maybe, if you're in my audience, your child's probably ADHD, anxiety, something's maybe a little different. How did you or do you apply that whole idea to your own family?
Oh my gosh. So I raised one child. I got married. Second marriage. Well, we want to go through the story. We can go through the story. So I actually raised one child. And here's the thing. I think that us I like to call us red personalities, but if you actually took some tests, I'm sure I am exploding off the charts with adult ADHD, and focus and attention disorders. But I think those type A personalities can very much be that way as well. I had my own focus issues, but, my son, oh my word, trying to go through that as a mom and understanding that the choices that they're making and what they're going through in their life, first of all, do not have a reflection on you and how you've parented. That I think is so key to know that you don't need to take that on your shoulders, that you are doing the absolute best that you can do. And for me, it really revolved around my faith in God, that I really had to learn as my son became a teenager and into college. I don't know if you remember your college years, but oh my word, it's troublesome enough to live through them as you're going through them, but then your child going through it too. It's turning it over and understanding that I'm not in control of this. And I have to give that over to God and just letting him know that I love him no matter what. And always making sure that my door was open so that he felt safe to come to me. Because if I was always treating him in judgment or well, you should be doing X, Y, and Z, and always giving him my opinion and what I felt like he should be doing, I was really causing damage to that relationship. So that when he really was struggling, I wouldn't be that person that he would come to for help. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of how I work with the students that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
I always come from a place of, this is what happened. They didn't turn in their homework, or they didn't do their project, or they did it, but it was stuffed in their backpack and whatever. Okay, this is what happened. So what's next? There's never that place of judgment or, well, you should have done this, or why didn't you do this? It's just, what's next?
Another thing that when my brother passed away, we ended up bringing on his daughter and got custody of her. She was 12 when we took her into our family, and we raised her, through going through high school, and lots of struggles there. And what really, really helped us with her was sitting down and having a family meeting when nothing is emotional. When you're going through stuff, especially as a woman, I don't know if you're like me and if some of your moms are like me, we get very emotional. We get very emotionally attached to their actions, their decisions, their outcomes. And so we had a family meeting where we sat down and we talked about what the expectations were. And you can easily do that. And so they get to decide, they get input into what the expectations are. And you don't have to make the list 20 items long. Make it simple for them and age appropriate, right? And then what helped us is that they, she, along with us, decided what were going to be the consequences. So if this expectation was not met, what would be the consequence? So there was no emotion that had to be attached to it. So once that family meeting was done, a contract was drawn up, we signed off on it, she signed off on it. I wish I would have known this when my son was younger, but I didn't, but it was so helpful in working through, because in retrospect, I think she had a whole lot of focus issues. And it was just a struggle to figure out what would work with her, to help that out.
And I mean, I'm sure it sounds like there was some amount of trauma there if she was coming into your life from having her parents pass away.
Yes.
So that's a whole nother element as well. Yeah.
Well, there was trauma. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes within months of my brother passing, which, then physically, so she had emotional trauma and then physical trauma on top of all of it. It just, it was a lot to work through.
Yeah, I imagine. What would your response be to someone who says something like, well, I'm just going to, spank the issues out? Because I hear that. Or, well, I'm just going to make them fear me. And that's the way it is. I'm the parent, they're the child. I think there's definitely that mentality, and maybe it works for some families. But what would your response to that be? Why?
Oh boy, Carrie, first of all, as a grandma, first of all, I think spanking is one thing. When they're little, it's more of an attention thing. It's not you don't spank out of anger. It's out of, hey, a pop on the bottom, not hard or anything like that, because it's their safety. And it's only when it's their safety. When they get to be older, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that doesn't work anymore, right? You can't pop them on the bottom and get there. I mean, sure, you probably could, but what are you, the message you're sending to them when you do something like that? And I'm not a psychologist, so please don't, quote me on that. But I just think that you want your child, as they're growing, you want them to feel safe with you. You want them to feel like they can come to you. And all the counseling that we went through, and trust me, there was a lot with my son, and then with bringing Jenny into the family, we were always in counseling with her. And, this was the advice that was given to us with the contract and that type of thing. I don't think fearing, I don't think hitting, I think respect and understanding what the rules are. And there are lines and there are boundaries, right? And there's consequences for those rules and boundaries being broken. And it can be done without the emotion.
Yeah. And I believe too that if you're valuing what your child has to say, it's creating them to be independent thinkers as opposed to just blind followers of this is the rule. And what kind of child do you want to raise? Do you want to raise someone who's just going to blindly follow what they're being told versus at least think about what they're about to do and the decision they're about to make?
Right.
And have some authority.
And think about it, I'm in my 50s, and sometimes I struggle to be able to communicate what the heck is going on in my head, or the emotions that I'm feeling. Even in my 50s, sometimes, what is this feeling? What is this truly that I'm feeling? So think about a child. Sometimes they're acting out because they don't know how to express what it is that's going on with them. So, if we can put ourselves more into their shoes, we're adults and we still struggle with, it makes sense in my head, but I'm not verbally putting it out there where it's making sense to you or you or you. Think about what their struggles are. And we've got all this time of life experience under our belt, right?
Yeah. And
Uh,
I feel like we don't accept that our kids can have bad days, especially if we send them like to school or an extracurricular activity. At home, sometimes we see our kids unraveling and falling apart, but it's like, no, they can't go to school and have a bad day. But it happens to all of us.
Why not? I have bad days. They're fewer and less in between as time goes on and as I go through my own self-development. And I wish I had gone through a lot of the self-development that I've been through in the last 8 years of my life. I mean, we're talking, mid 40s to now. And so I was way behind the curve. And there was a lot of stuff that happened earlier on, but the real digging in deep didn't happen until the last 8 years. But there were times where I remember as an adult in my 40s laying in bed for 2 days because I couldn't deal with reality, and life. And it's like, oh, I can't, So unfortunately, I was in a position where I could do that. And then, finally pulling on, okay, I got to shower, I got to clean up, I got to put myself together, and go out and do, fortunately, I don't have those days anymore where I'm incapacitated by the overwhelm of the emotions. And if that happens to me as an adult, just think, oh my word, what they're going through.
Yeah, especially a teenager who might be going through hormonal changes and they just don't understand what's happening in their minds and in their body.
Oh,
Um,
going through menopause, which I'm done, thank the Lord, it lasted forever. Going through that now, and then going back and looking at, when you go into puberty, I looked at my husband and said, I am absolutely psycho. I have zero control over my emotions. I really didn't. I had to, I figured out ways to control the emotions and help, balance out the hormones so that got better. But there were, before I started working with it, it's like one minute I seriously wanted to kill somebody, and the next minute you're like, happy joy. So,
that's totally me right now. And I don't think I'm headed towards menopause yet. No other symptoms are showing that way, but man, like my feelings and my emotions are just something I have never experienced before. So something's going on with me.
well, and you don't have to be, I used to think it was from onset of puberty to menopause that we really needed to be balancing out our hormones. And I've done enough talking and people coming on the podcast and talking with the experts that for us women, it is from birth. It is absolutely from birth until we are buried, that we need to balance the hormones. So, there are all kinds of things that you're probably using in your everyday products that are absolutely endocrine disruptors, and it's not that you can't control your emotions or that you don't have a handle on them. It's just you've got so much disrupting those hormones that they're so out of whack that there is no balance. There is not going to be that.
Yeah. I definitely want to jump into that, and I have so many questions, especially now that you just said that. But can we rewind to your
Yeah.
childhood and school story for a minute? So what was school like for you? You said at first you were a straight A student. Did I get
I
that?
was very much a straight A student all the way through. I mean, I won all kinds of awards, honor roll. I won first place in science fair projects. I smart as a whip, and all the way through about my sophomore year of high school, and then we really started this downward spiral. Um, uh, it truly, it started in about my sophomore year, leading into the junior year and senior year of high school, to the extent, how much of it do you want me to tell, Carrie?
As much as you would like. We're speaking to parents here who feel like they're at their wits' end.
Okay.
Whatever
Yes.
you want to share, I think would make them feel not alone.
I, like I said, I was an honor roll student. Really didn't have any problem. I was one of those chameleons where I was a cheerleader, I was in sports, and I was, academically doing well. But then I also started getting into a crowd that, chose other things to be doing. And so I really got into drinking a lot and smoking a lot of marijuana is what I did. And to go back, I lost my mom when I was 10 years old. And so I don't think that I ever grieved that, went through that process. And so to me, when I discovered alcohol and getting high, it was like, I don't feel any pain anymore, and I don't hurt. So I really got into that kind of crowd. And it went to the point where my senior year, I got kicked out of a lot of classes, was not on honor roll anymore. And I had enough credits to graduate, but they didn't think I was going to have the grade point average to graduate. It was not a good, picture. And I got pregnant while I was a senior in high school. I did go on to college, but I had to go through all the tests because they didn't think I was smart enough to get into college. And then through the testing, I tested out of all English, math, and science classes. I didn't have to take any except for what was pertinent to my degree. So I was lashing out in so many different directions and so out of control. And had parents that they had no idea what the heck to do with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it was. I think it goes back to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago, that these behaviors we see the kids do and the emotional dysregulation is just all symptoms of, hey, I don't know how to communicate and deal with what I'm experiencing.
Oh, and I had no idea. And I didn't feel like I could talk to my parents at home. My parents, we grew up with family businesses, family affairs. You don't talk to anybody outside the family about what's going on within the home. But in the home was so dysfunctional that you couldn't talk there either. Carrie, my mom died on a Sunday. I mean, this has been many, many years ago. I went to school on Monday. I was taken out of school for Wednesday for the funeral and went right back again on Thursday. We never talked about it. It was not discussed. So you didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't talk about how you felt. You didn't share any of that. And I didn't have anybody to talk to about that. And so when I discovered alcohol, oh, hats off, it was done.
Was there a trigger that you can identify? I know you said you kind of fell into the wrong crowd, but was there like a moment that drew you in another direction? Or was it a process?
You know what, Carrie, in all honesty, I think I was such a mess inside myself that I didn't feel I was good enough to be with the crowds that I was running with. Even though I was an athlete, even though I made the cheerleading, even though I still did not feel good inside. And so when I got with the wrong crowd, they accepted me exactly as I was. They didn't, I didn't feel like I had to be somebody I wasn't. Does that make sense? It was, so it was not feeling like I had to be of worth and be of value.
Yeah. I work with a lot of kids who are struggling with being in the wrong crowd and making some of these destructive choices. And at school, we sit around at the meetings and the kids are basically being asked to reinvent themselves. And I always come from a place of, well, what do you think that's going to look like for the kid? First of all, he or she has no idea how to do it, what they should be doing. but suddenly you're asking them to be somebody different. They're not going to have any of the same friends. Like, that's just not a feasible situation.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the even as a grandparent, even now, our first instinct when kids are like, when I was doing all the things, it was, well, you can't hang around this person. You can't hang around that person. The problem with that is those people didn't make me do what I did. It was how I was feeling inside. It was the same thing with Nick, my son, when I was raising him, and Jenny, when we brought her in. You want to control their environment, but that's the wrong thing. My head says control the environment and they'll do good things. But it's you got to get to in their heart, in their mind, because for me, my heart and my brain weren't connected at all. At all. So that's where I needed to get the connection, was the brain and the heart being connected in one and the same. And then it wouldn't matter where you dropped me with this crowd, or this crowd. I was going to choose to do the right things because I was connected in what I believed in my heart and my morals and my values and how I felt in my heart.
Yeah, I think that's incredible advice. Like, we need to focus on our kids and developing their identities, or rather giving them the room to develop their own identities.
Right.
It's not school, it's not who you run with, it's not what you want to be when you grow up. It's who are you as a human being.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So many times we're so tasked on, just now selling the business, shortly after that, I was like, I had a lot of my identity wrapped up in that business, and we're not what we do. That's not who we are.
Yeah.
And so I remember, I got sober when I was young. I thank the Lord, because I would have been dead. There's no question, if, ands, or buts about it. When I got sober, I found out that they were, my parents and the person who babysat my son were getting ready to call CPS and have him taken away from me. So, by the grace of God, we didn't have to go down that path. But shoot, now I forgot what I was going to say.
Identities. You sold the business.
Oh, I remember when I got sober, my first, sponsor was like, what do you like to do? What do you do? I'm like, huh? What do you mean? What do I like to do? I mean, some of the simple, basic things that, talking to them and allowing them, because I think sometimes as parents too, we get kids involved in all the things that we want to be involved in, or we think that they want to be involved in. What do they want to do? What lights their fire? What, makes them happy?
I'm laughing because I have two girls, and when I found out I was going to have girls, I freaked out a little bit. I'm not like a girly kind of person. I don't know how to do hair. I don't know how to do makeup. But it was like, I want to be a mom. It's going to be fine. And I knew that. But my 4-year-old right now is obsessed with ballet. And it terrifies me. I'm like, no, I don't want my child to be a ballet dancer. But we've been pulling up YouTube videos, and I found like the Wiggles Ballet Studio on YouTube, and she was just going at it and having great fun. And I'm trying to do it too, and thinking maybe it won't stick, but if that's what she likes, I'm going to try and support it as best I can.
That's you've taken what you think about, what's important to you, but you might, your daughter might not be that at all. And, right. I mean, it's so funny how, these things transpire. And we learn in every, situation that we go through in life, hopefully.
Yeah. Or we should come at it with that attitude of it's a learning experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you screwed up a lot in high school, to put it kindly. But college, what was that like? Was that okay?
I actually, I did 2 years of college. So once my son was born, I went, directly back into partying again. I stayed clean. And so things were, well, during that time. I stayed in college for a period of time, but I was going to college. I was working 3 part-time jobs. My parents were not, they were like, we'll provide a roof over your head, but that's it. We're not helping you out or anything like that. So it was really left to me. And I didn't want to abide by any rules. I felt like, I'm a mom myself. Why should I have to abide by your rules? And, so I moved out and got my own place, which, oh God, I just cringe, at what it was. But, and sometimes when I'm back in my hometown, I drive by that very first place I rented just to remind myself of where I was. It was an old motel that was changed into efficiency apartments. I mean, it was like a room with a bed in it. There was a sink, a little refrigerator, and a bathroom. I mean, it was not, and you opened up the door and cockroaches fell down. It was so horrible, so horrible.
Yeah.
But I just, and I couldn't, I just wasn't being able to make ends meet. And it was just too much. And I ended up quitting college and then just working a full-time job and a part-time job, for a while, and then eventually came into the family business. But
that's
yeah.
amazing that you had the strength to do it. I mean, things were rough and you stuck with it. You had something inside of you driving you.
It's interesting because you just do it. You just put one foot in front of the other. I mean, what other choice do you have? You just have to do all the things that you have to do. I laugh at, I see families now, especially I have, 3 sons and 3 daughter-in-laws and 3 different sets of families. And I see how active and involved the boys are all part of. And I've got one, group where dad is at every doctor's appointment, at every, activity and every function. And I'm like, I didn't have that. It was up to me. I was it. I didn't get married until Nick was off in college. Well, the good one. Good marriage. We put the other marriage under the rug.
So let's fast forward now. We've shown the less desirable parts of life, but I mean, you were super successful in your business. Can you talk about that? Am I going to get this right? You were the only 100% woman-owned business out of like over 2,000 franchises?
Yep. So yes, I owned Jiffy Lube franchises, and we had 5 locations. And when I purchased the company, I was the only 100% woman-owned franchise business. In fact, I'm a certified mechanic. I'm ASE certified, although I personally haven't worked on cars for many years, but I did. That's what I did. And I got a lot of attention. Women just weren't necessarily in the automotive world, let alone owning the business. So I got a lot of press with that. I got asked to be on Wife Swap, of that show.
Oh my gosh.
So, just a lot of things happen. I did a lot for women in the community. It was such a tremendous experience to be in that. Yeah, we took, there were, in the early days when we started, there were over 2,500 service centers nationwide. And out of those 2,500 service centers nationwide, they held a competition where they wanted to we work with a 5-man crew in our stores, and they wanted to find the best 5-man crew. So it was a huge competition called All Stars. And my organization, we took the 5-person team that won it all. And the guys won like $10,000. And I mean, it was a big deal. And tons of awards, tons of accolades. It just was such a great experience to be in that realm and learn all that I learned. And I think through that, I learned that perseverance, that stick-to-itiveness, that drive just to keep doing and going forward.
And you still own the properties. You sold the businesses, but you own the properties, right?
Right. We sold the asset, which would be the franchise agreements, and all the tools and stuff. And then I kept the facility. So, yeah.
Got it. So that'll be, would you consider it passive income? What term would you use for that? Yeah.
Yep. 40-year lease. So we'll
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the way, you stepped into network marketing with your essential oils.
We did. I did. I always say we. I don't know why. We do everything.
Well, you manage 200 people in your network marketing group, right?
Yep.
So that's a we.
Yep, that's a we. It's a team thing. So yeah, almost 6 years ago, I was introduced into network marketing because, well, honestly, it was because somebody kept asking me, and I was like, if you like, oh, will you leave me alone? Because it was one of those companies, and I didn't want anything to do with it. And well, lo and behold, here we sit.
For me, at least recently, anytime something's a hard no, I've realized I need to at least investigate it a little bit, because it might be a yes. Maybe it's still a no, but it might be a yes.
Yep. Well, and it's interesting. And I look now, because network marketing, I thought was the biggest scam ever. I mean, I was the biggest skeptic, number one, of essential oils, because that is hippie stuff. That is the people, hugging trees and singing Kumbaya. That is not me, so that was totally out of my realm. And then, the idea of this, because, if you wanted a legitimate business, you went and you invested, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you ran that business, because that's what I knew. And I wish I would have known about network marketing, because, oh my word, you're talking very little. Anybody can do it. Anybody can make something of themselves with it. The income potential is limitless in it. And if I had it to do all over again, purchase the franchises or do network marketing, I choose network marketing every day of the week.
And what you sound now, from my understanding, is a product you truly believe in. You've done your research, you believe in it. Can you tell us what it is? Also, what your group structure is, and then maybe we can get into some of your tips to help my families.
There you go. So it's Young Living Essential Oils. So we're a health and wellness company. We are the largest. We have over 9 million members worldwide. When I got in the automotive business, we were Jiffy Lube franchise number one, out there in the quick oil. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I might as well be with the number one, right? 25 years, no one's been around longer. We have oils plus essential oil infused products. So honestly, I had my own personal experience. I was in the throes of menopause. We talked a little bit about that. And when I went to this class that Tina had, she put something on me. I don't even know what she put on me. I sat and listened to her stuff, and I half listened. I thought most of everything that she was passing around stunk. It was like, oh, that is just nasty. Who would put that on their body, But I asked her about, hey, I never heard anything about hot flashes and not being able to sleep. What do you got? And she's like, here. And she put some stuff. Carrie, I went home that night, didn't think two shakes about it, right? What you put something on my forearms and now it's going to make me sleep. I slept like a baby. I hadn't slept like that in forever. And I didn't wake up in a pool of sweat. I'm like, I don't know what you did, but sign me up. I don't really care how much it cost. It was important. So, and that just led me on learning, about what it is that we have in our homes that's causing some issues for us, and seeing, is there something different I can choose and make a choice that's a little bit better and maybe alleviate some of the issues that I'm having. And I had so much fun with it, and so much success, and so much sharing and seeing lives being changed, that I wanted to give it a voice with the podcast.
Yeah. Tell us about the podcast and maybe your First Steps
Oh,
program.
sure.
Maybe someone listening.
Absolutely. So the podcast I got because I wanted to give voice. Chronic disease is going the wrong way in the country, and it's increasing. The numbers are expected to continue to increase, and chronic disease is something that is absolutely within our control by our lifestyle choices. So I wanted, rather than me coming on and preaching to you, hey, you need to do ... Well, you know how well that works, right? I wanted to come on and share stories of people who have overcome chronic disease by removing toxins from their life. So that's the majority of the podcast. Sometimes I bring on experts, industry leaders that are going to share a modality. They've got something to bring on that you can, it's a tool that you can use and implement into your life. I've got a gal coming on at the beginning of next month that's going to talk about how we can, it's easy to meditate in a quiet room. It's easy to go do that, but she's going to teach us how we can actually meditate in the noise. Meditate when you're on a train or in a classroom or, so that you can quiet yourself and really alleviate a lot of those stress levels. And what a great thing to bring on before the holidays.
Yeah, I've actually been doing that with my students, opening up sessions with playing like a washing machine sound or some sort of repetitive sound and having them tune in and observe. And I find it hugely focusing just to listen to it for a minute or two. And if that's the only thing I'm paying attention to, it's just my whole world changes in that moment. Like I feel it in my body.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's just, like everything, it all takes practice, right? When we first learn how to walk, we fall down all the time, but eventually we get it down. And anything else is, it's learning how to, there's a difference between being calm and having inner peace, and learning how to give yourself that inner peace is pretty significant.
Yeah. Especially with everything we've got going on around us.
Oh, absolutely. So then First Steps is a new segment that we're adding in. I'm hoping to launch it in January and I'll describe it to you. So what I'm going to do is I will have a person call in and we record all of this and they're going to describe exactly what's going on in their life and what they need help with. And then I'm going to give them 1 or 2 things that they can do and stay committed to doing that for 30 days. And then they're going to come back on in the 30 days and we're going to record again of their results with that. So it's really fun. I'm not seeing anybody else out there doing that. It could blow up in my face. I don't know, because I can't guarantee your result. I can't guarantee that you're going to do what I tell you to do, right? But the hope is that, people will come on, they will want to, I'm asking them to be committed for at least the 30 days. And I'm really super excited about it. And I haven't decided, my original intent was to bookend it. So you come on, the session is like 10, 15 minutes long. It's not long at all. And then, we record it and then we go through the 30 days and I'll be checking in with you weekly as we go through that 30 days. And then at the end we record. And the idea was to put those 2 together and then air it at that time. So I don't still have that yet. Do I want to wait until it's all together or air the first one then? So I don't know yet. I'll figure that one out as we go. But
yeah. I think that's such a great idea. And I think too, for everyone listening, what Aimee's saying is so important, because she's saying 1 or 2 things. And this is anytime you're trying to make a change in your life, whether it's with the kids or your own life or whatever. 1 or 2 things, small things. You can't take on the world all at once. It's just not going to work. 1 or 2 small things and commit to a time period. It does take practice. It takes time to develop a habit and then to evaluate whether it's, working. But it's so feasible to commit to 30 days.
Yeah, 30 days is not a hard, and we want to give it enough time for a result to happen too. Most people, there's probably not anything that I'm going to say, well, you need to go buy this or get this. Most things that we're going to give are such small little steps that you can take that you just have no idea. You're going to go, oh my gosh, really? So it's, it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it, and looking forward to how that impacts people, and whether if they want to continue on and learn more. I don't know how it's going to progress along, but I just thought, why not bring people on that are willing to be vulnerable, willing to say, hey, this is what I struggle with, this is what I need help with, and then get some advice.
So what are your tips, tricks, products, whatever, for maybe families or kids with ADHD, anxiety, like I'm living in chaos, brain fog, I'm worried all the time, anything in that area?
So yeah,
that's a big area.
I would say, you want to look at several different things. Number one, there's obviously some foods, that we want to take a look at if we're having trouble with focus and you're on the spectrum. So if you truly are on the spectrum, there are some foods that you're going to want to stay away from. There's we want to make sure that we're getting the appropriate sleep. There are obviously there's certain exercises that we can do, and then there's certain toxins that we're going to want to stay away from as well. When we talk about focus, essential oils, and I use a lot of essential oils with my grandkids, with me, with other people, because we can absolutely impact focus and emotions, because when you smell something, it goes to the front lobes of the brain, where you don't form a thought about it, you form an emotion about it. And so we can greatly impact our emotions, we can greatly impact our ability to focus by the scent, and smelling something. And now, depending on where someone is on the spectrum, that may take some time. There are kids that we can diffuse with them, but the noise might bother them. The sound might, so we have to introduce things slowly. It just depends on where people are on the spectrum. I'll talk about a few toxins. I have some things written out. Lead is found in so many of our children's toys. It's found in our drinking water. We really need to look at the sources of our toys and our drinking water and what we're showering in. If you cannot get a whole house system, and reverse osmosis is the best, then at least get good drinking water and get the shower filters. There's actually shower heads that you can take off and put on, and it will filter what you're taking a shower in, because when you're bathing and when you're showering, that water, you're in the hot water, you're opening up the pores to your body, and our skin is the biggest organ of our body. So we're getting lots and lots of toxin exposure through that.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yep, go right ahead.
You mentioned lead, and I was kind of conditioned that it wasn't a thing anymore. Like, unless you're living in a really old house and your kid is chewing on the windowsill, it's not a thing. But I have taught children with lead poisoning, and more than one. I've taught several kids with lead poisoning, and it is a thing. It's more than just, a child that you're not paying attention to chewing on a windowsill. Yeah. Do you know, like, I know you mentioned water, other sources of lead that we should be looking out for?
Again, some of the things that I have, especially if you're buying things manufactured outside of the US, a lot of times lead exposure can be on a lot of those products. So it's in our pipes, it's in the drinking water. It's just the exposure that happens. That's why, people think of lead-based paint, right? But you don't think of the pipes that are in that home, right? And those old pipes. We don't think about the exposure that's happening with the heavy metals that are going into our drinking water and the water that we're using in our homes. So the notes that I have are especially lead can be found in a lot of the children's toys, and especially when we're talking about children, we want to look at those. Yeah.
And I think the whole idea too, that it affects you, even if you're not at that point of whatever the measurement is, qualifying for lead poisoning, having it in your body can still affect you.
Absolutely. And the thing is that even if the US government says that, so many parts per billion or whatever is safe, you're drinking it, you're bathing in it, you're washing your clothes in it, so they're sitting on you, so how many exposures is safe, right? There's bioaccumulation that happens too, so maybe the toxic exposure in any given toxin is minimal and considered safe, but the fact that you're using products every single day, multiple times a day, that are giving, more than what your body can do. And here's the thing, when you have focus issues, that very much can be a toxic overload. A neurotoxin is, you've got too much toxins in the body for your body to do what it's naturally capable of doing. Focus, sleep, brain fog, skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, autoimmune diseases. Those are all signs and symptoms of toxic overload. And if you don't pay attention to your body saying, hey, too much is too much, headaches, are a symptom of toxic overload. And digestive issues, the list goes on. And if we don't pay attention, then we're going to have a chronic disease. That's the next step, right? So we want to start paying attention when our body's saying, listen to me, I'm trying to tell you that we're not okay here.
And I think sometimes we get so used to feeling like crap that we don't even realize we're feeling like crap. I actually had a student tell me that. He was talking about his anxiety, and he's like, I feel like crap all the time.
And this is, anxiety is another perfect example. So many people want to go into, I have to be on medication to treat my anxiety. Well, I would say, hey, maybe you do need that. I am not going to be here telling you, do not take this or that or this or that. I'm going to tell you that there's ways that you can add to it and complement it and maybe reduce the amount of medications that you have to take, because medications are a synthetic that our body doesn't recognize, and we're creating other symptoms when we do that. But anxiety and emotional things that are happening to us are very much related to our gut. And when we have those emotional things, depression, anxiety, those types of things going on, our gut is so inflamed. And so we've got to look to our gut, and we might not even recognize that it's inflamed. So I always ask somebody, how's your poop? How many times are you pooping? A day. You should be having, 2 to 3 poops a day. Are you not doing that? Hey, then we need to treat the gut. And you know what? The emotional part of it might solve itself when we treat.
Yeah. A lot of people, and I used to be like this too, was like, no, ADD's in the brain. Like, none of this stuff matters. But then when I turn around and think of it from the perspective of how do we survive? We survive from food and drink.
Yeah.
And air. And if we don't have those things, we die. Those are the things that fuel us. And if those things have bad stuff in them, then we're doing bad stuff to our bodies.
Right. Well, and think about it. Here's a perfect example that everybody can, relate to. What happens when you get scared? When you're nervous and you're scared, what happens? Your body physically responds to that, right? So especially if you're nervous, say you're doing something that you haven't done before and you get really, really nervous, you wring your hand, your heart rate beats, but you get butterflies in your stomach, right? They're connected. You might get sick to your stomach. You might feel like you're going to throw up. I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to before they public speak, they're like, I'm going to throw up. I'm absolutely going to throw up. They're so nervous, and that's your gut responding to the inflammation that you're putting on the body with your anxiety and your fear, your anxiousness. So they're absolutely connected. You talked about, what we fuel our body with, our food and water sources. And what people don't recognize too is that there's a lot of neurotoxins in the things that we're using. And when we're talking about not being able to focus, that's a neurotoxin. So we want to look at the things like, number one, get rid of everything that is a fragrance in your house. That is causing so many issues. So it is in things like, don't, please, of all things holy, don't use the plugins and the warmers and all of those things. They're just candles, you know. They're just emitting toxins. Fragrance is considered the new secondhand smoke. But it's also in things like your laundry soap, what you're cleaning your house with. It's in your body wash, it's in your shampoo, it's in your deodorant, it's in your lotions, you know. So, but the good news is you can buy products that are fragrance free, you know, so that's what you want to look for. Don't buy unscented because they're still chemically treated to cover the smell. So fragrance free is the way to go. And that will make a huge difference in your focus and attention abilities.
That's so interesting. I hate anything smelly. I always have. I can't stand air fresheners. Like, it makes me want to run outside and barf. My poor parents and I always have this battle because they like the plug-in wall things, and in their house is not terrible because their house is pretty big, but in our beach house it's smaller, and they get to me, and I have to take them out. I can't deal with it, and they like to plug them back in, and I like to take them out.
Battle. It's who's gonna win.
Yeah, but I would get headaches, and I would feel sick very quickly.
Yeah, and think about that. And here's the thing, you know, you're sensitive to it. You've recognized it, right? I had no idea. I was the biggest culprit of using those plugins. I thought they smelled great and, you know, covered up the smell. It was, you know, a wonderful thing. I had, you know, those spray fresheners in every bathroom because, God forbid, you know, you want to do your business and we don't want everybody else to know it. You know, I was the biggest junkie. But today, I can't be around it. I'm like you. It gives me an instant headache. So think about what that's doing to our children. And they don't know any different, right?
What were some of the first changes you made that noticed had a big difference for you?
The fragrance was the very first thing I changed. Was alleviating what I was cleaning my home with, what I was doing laundry with, you know, were two big things. And I used to suffer from migraine headaches, severe migraine headaches, where I lost my vision, migraine headaches. And I have not had a headache, let alone a migraine, in the last 6 years. They're gone, which is, I'm so very, very thankful for it. And I'm not the only one, you know, so fragrance was a big thing. And then it was supporting different systems, supporting digestive system. It was supporting, doing different things to support my sleep. Sleep was a huge issue for me, and not being able to sleep. And then I was going through menopause and was just a monster. So, you know, it was figuring out what I could do to help balance out those hormones. Those were some of the big.
Would your supports for sleep, are they menopause specific, or are they more general? Sleep is a big issue for kids with ADHD and anxiety, especially ones on meds, because sometimes the meds make it harder to go to sleep at night.
Nope.
And it's just this cycle, because then lack of sleep exacerbates symptoms, so it makes it worse. So then often you get put on more meds, and then you can't sleep, and then you start introducing the sleep medicine and the anti-anxiety medicine, and it's just like this.
Yep.
You know.
So sleep, a couple things. There's some things that you can do. These are just general. Number one, you want it dark. You know, you need it dark and quiet, you know, if you can. If you can't make it dark, and you don't want all of the LED lights and stuff like that on, so never have your cell phone in the room that you sleep in. That's number one. That's emitting different kinds of lights and stuff that are affecting your brain waves. So don't ever even have that in your room. That's number one. Number two is get into a sleep routine. So about an hour before bedtime, all electronics just should be off. Even watching TV, because that is such a stimulus to the brain, and we need to quiet it down. So an hour before, read, or do some sort of quiet exercise, take a warm bath, you know, do whatever is relaxing to you, but get the electronics turned off. I know that's hard for kids, but if you can get them in the habit of doing that, they're going to sleep better. So those are two kind of just overall general, the things to do to quiet the brain down to even do it. And then there's obviously essential oils. Some people like them on their body. We do a lot of oils on the soles of the feet because you've got so many reflexology points on the soles of your feet, it's getting everywhere it needs to be. So that's a great place to put oils, especially if smell bothers. Kids, you can put it on their feet, put socks on, it's doing its job without anybody knowing the difference, right? Or you can diffuse in the room if it doesn't bother them with the noise, or the diffusers. So there's a lot of different oils that can help. And it's a matter of finding the one that works for you. And I have found what I use to sleep today is different than what I used 5 years ago. It's changed. There's so many out there that can help. Obviously, lavender comes to mind, cedarwood, frankincense, are all peace and calming. There's so many that are so good to just relax the brain and shut down and be able to go to sleep.
Yeah. And that electronics point is so hard because even if students are willing to do it, a lot of the kids I work with are up doing homework on their computer until it's time for them to go to sleep. So I always counter to schools, like, you need to at least have a flexible deadline because this child needs to retrain her sleep, and the electronics need to shut off at 9. If she's not done the homework, let her turn it in, in a couple days when she can get it all done, whatever it is, because these kids, regardless that I don't think they should be doing homework until the moment they fall asleep, they do need to have time away from homework and away from the electronics.
Well, and just to be a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, just to enjoy life. If life is all about school, extracurricular activities, and homework, how viable of a life is that as well? You need to have your family time. You need to have your friend time. There's just so many things that they need to be able to do. But here is another, tip on kids. We do it as adults. The time you give a task to take is how much time it's going to take to get it accomplished. So if they can set timers, if they have their phone by them, to set a timer, I'm going to work on this for 1 hour or 30 minutes or whatever that case may be, that they think, and then it's done. Yeah. It's done. Because sometimes our brains go into just overload and they can't process stuff anyway. So it's good at least every 60 minutes, to take a 10-minute break, get up, move around, walk, stretch, do something and come back and get refocused.
Yeah. Yeah. I propose that. I talk a lot with my students about done is better than perfect.
Yes.
But it's hard too when you have that anxiety component, and especially if perfectionism is at play and you just want to get it right. So I tell them, like, you just got to stop. It's just got to be done. This is fine. Turn it in. You're done.
A lot of things that Bobby shared for focus, and again, you have to be age appropriate. So if you're, say, elementary, age type thing, have them stand and hold their homework instead of sitting at a desk. They can have weighted blankets that they have on their lap when they're doing their homework to help them stay focused. Or backpack, on their back, just things like that. Pressure helps, give some focus as well. Movement. Younger children, getting them a big, they'll work out big workout balls that are big, having them roll on that. And their book is in front of them and they can kind of get that swinging motion and be reading at the same time, is so great. When they're little, they can do things like blowing and sucking is another really good activity to do. So, taking cotton balls and putting things out like flashcards, and they've got to blow the cotton ball to the right answer, or, those type of things are great things to work with the kids.
Yeah, this whole sensory needs thing is so overlooked, and school is just not set up to accommodate sensory needs. And I believe, maybe this is proven somewhere, I don't know, but my own belief is, as a species, we weren't really intended to just sit around. but we culturally now we sit around, we ask our kids to sit at desks, and we're not built for that. So I think that we're creating this whole slew of sensory issues.
Yeah.
And we see kids that I see a lot of cases of ADHD that I think more are just sensory needs not being met, that if we just did things a little differently, the kids would be fine.
Yeah. No, I agree. And you know, do you guys get into, kind of like top foods to help boost brain power and help create more focus?
That is not my area of expertise, but I would love to hear
So there's a
what
lot
you know.
yeah, I always like to give people things to do, rather than take away. So if we can add things like turmeric. Turmeric is awesome to add in to as a spice. Add that in, or you could take turmeric, in a powder form. Because it inhibits the production of amyloids, and it breaks up plaque. It boosts our memory and helps our brain cell production. So turmeric is awesome. There's teas that are turmeric teas that would be, depending on the age of the child. Celery helps calm the inflammation in the brain. It's wonderful food. So do peppers and carrots, are really good calming of inflammation in the brain. Broccoli and cauliflower have choline in them that boosts cognitive function. It improves our ability to learn and memorize. So broccoli and cauliflower are a couple of really good ones to add in. Walnuts have omega-3s. Think about, it looks like a brain, right? Broccoli, cauliflower look like a brain. So think about, that's an easy thing to say. What food looks like a brain? It's going to help brain function. Walnuts, pecans, they look like a brain. So
I've never heard it put that way before. That's great. I love it.
Yeah, so if you can just start pushing in more of these good foods. Blueberries are really, really good, for brain function. And then, of course, healthy fats. Right. Coconut oil, avocados, real butter are really, really good for brain function. So those are great things to add in that are really going to help promote better focus.
Yeah. I think that healthy fats is so important for us to remember too, because we live in this world that tells us don't have fat, buy fat free. And there's so much crap in a lot of that stuff too, which I'm sure is harming you.
Well, and then, like when we were working with Jenny, so Jenny definitely had focus issues. And what helped her was being able to have a piece of paper that she could shred while she was focusing on stuff. So she did a lot of either making little things with pieces of paper or shredding it.
This is what I'm doing right now, is my hairband under the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always had something that she was working with in her hands. But some of the things, we used a lot of oils with her, for focus. And what we found worked really good were oils like vetiver and frankincense and cedarwood. Clarity, I used that before you and I got on. Clarity just helps us calm down and bring things into focus. And again, oils are so powerful because it's immediate. It's such an immediate response. And here's the good thing about younger kids. They've got these little bracelets that like snap on. They have little clay pieces in them, and you can put the oil in there and they'll smell that all day long. So no one even needs to know that they're using it. They can just add the drops before they leave. They can, smell their wrist when they need to.
I've never seen those. That's really neat.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing from you is there's still a lot of experimentation in this. And I think sometimes when we consider, I hate this word, but I'm going to use it, alternative medicines, because they're really not alternative as far as I'm concerned. But when, you try once, and if it doesn't work, you get turned off and you walk away from it. But I think that if you're willing to experiment, and like you're saying in your first step show, just commit to one or two small changes, stick with it for a set amount of time that you decide ahead of time. Yeah. Then you can have some real information about whether or not what you tried works.
Yep.
And also maybe be willing to commit to like one or two other things after that.
Yes, it's all a process. I always tell, and it's a combination. Every person's body chemistry is different. So what works for one person may not work for another person. You know, some people peace and calming is very relaxing to them. Some people peace and calming wires them up. It's, you know, you have to figure out what works. But the thing I would suggest to people is don't try something in a one and done. You know, we didn't get to the state that we're in overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight either. So, you know, like you said, you know, be committed to it, be committed to starting one thing. And again, don't do it all at once. You know, it's those baby steps, because those small changes can make huge impacts in overall health, overall function, overall, you know, all of it. It's just, it's a big thing when you can just do little steps at a time.
So I'm just going to give a call to action here for anyone listening. Give it a try. Aimee, you've got some resources out there of products you recommend,
Yes.
right? Maybe if you can give those to me, or I'll dig them up. I'll put them in the show notes. And just everyone listening, make one change, stick with it for 30 days. And I would love to know, and I'm sure Aimee would love to know, if, you know, what your results were. Did it help? Didn't it? And what are you going to try next after that?
Absolutely. And if they want, my website is just my name, www.aimee, and it's AIMEE Carlson.com. And on there, I've got products that I love. I've got places where you can chat with me. You can connect with me. You can email me. If you want to work with me in the First Steps program, I'm happy to talk with you. And connect with you. I love listening to people, and there's a lot of things that I can tell you and recommend for you that don't involve buying the product. That's not what it's about. If you choose to do that, great. I can give you other alternative solutions as well. My big thing is that you get help.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put your links in. Anything else you would like us to know?
I just thank you for your time, and you know, I'm happy to be here and be of some sort of service.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I feel like there's people who are really going to get value out of this.
Awesome.
So, all right. See you later, Aimee. Thanks.
Thanks.